Penn State University's Lunar Lion team will make history as the first ever university-led space mission to the moon. This group of talented young minds is competing in the Google Lunar X Prize competition to land a robotic spacecraft on the moon in December of 2015. To put this in perspective, only the U.S., Russia, India, Japan, and China have ever landed a craft on the moon, and Penn State looks to join this elite club next year.
The rules of the competition are that it's 90% private funding, so we get a 10% public funding.
It's kind of the idea like, oh, Penn State is going to kind of fund this and we're not going to do a whole lot of fundraising. A couple months down the line it was like, oh, we have to fundraise for this. And then it's like, oh, and then we have to put this entire process in place and you have to get the word out about Lunar Lion.
We are Penn State! We are Penn State!
And you have to create this entire brand image, and you have to go so beyond what we originally thought.
We've done a lot of fundraising in order to raise the money to put a down payment on our launch provider. We have to pay a certain percentage as a down payment, but we're still working on getting the funds for that.
The prize is only $20 million. A lot of people ask why we're spending $60 million to make 20, to which we always say we're not spending 60 to make 20, we're spending $60 million to make history.
To get to the moon, you have to be able to get into space. And so that's where a lot of groups right now are having issues.
I want to make sure that all the components that need to be controlled are on here so they can run through checkouts and make sure that everything works fine and not like, oh yeah, here on test day, we didn't check that out, but it's supposed to work. So I've come to learn that fingers crossed doesn't always work so well for us. Things, usually when you go for your first test, it doesn't pan out. So it's like you try and iron out those bugs as early as possible.
Early this summer, with one of the engines we were testing, we had a rapid unscheduled disassembly, or in layman's terms, an explosion.
I was here this summer for the rapid unscheduled disassembly, and it was so fast, the frame rate on our camera couldn't keep up with
it. Stuff happens.
So we were looking through the video afterwards, and 1 second everything's fine. Then there's 1 second that's just a white flash, and then afterwards you're suddenly missing four fire valves, you're missing like half of an engine, you're just missing this entire section. It was insane. There was valve pieces 40 feet away.
But I think we figured out something to do with the spark plug, which is pretty interesting because we're using a $20 spark plug we bought at Advanced Auto Parts to fire a rocket engine. Very off the shelf is what we're doing.
Yeah, we've had to push a couple things back, but we're still trying to meet our deadline of late December 15 or early 2016, as much or as close as possible. But you never know what could happen. Things like this always happen where delays are introduced and things don't go as planned. But yeah, we're trying to move along as quickly as we can.
An engineering project by itself, you want to hit all the deadlines, but that also doesn't always happen. As students who are trying to do this, you're like, oh, I'm doing great, in a week I'll have this done, and then all of a sudden you have 4 projects lined up for that week, and you're like, oh, next week it will definitely get done kind of deal. So I balance it pretty well. A lot of other students balance it well too. And for the engineers, in part, it's because this is what they love doing, so they don't mind kind of working extra time on this and to really make it happen.
This was a throttle valve, so we were sending it a 0 to 4 volt analog signal, which would get mapped from 0 to 4 volts to 0 to 90 degrees. So if we did 2 volts, that'd be 45 degrees and all that.
We have so many students, graduate students, even professionals working on this project. People can bring in experience or software experience that they have.
Every spacecraft needs propulsion from the bottom to the top.
We're constantly having turnover with students because they'll graduate, or we actually have 3 who are going to SpaceX, which is pretty fantastic. It's like working for NASA in this commercial space industry, but that also means we're losing them. So, that's always an issue as well.
We're the first university to do this, and even if it is a failure, everything's a learning experience, and Penn State can still say that we have a team that tried to go to the moon.
This is a great opportunity for students. It's already bringing, I think, a fair amount of attention to this group and to the aerospace community here at Penn State.
When I went to the career fair, I was amazed that these people were just rolling over this resume. Like when I went to Ford, they showed me a list of jobs and they said, well, you literally have experience in all of these and can do any of them, so just apply for whatever you want.
When you think about it, Lunar Lion, the mission to the moon is short term. Yes, that's a couple years or whatever, but it's actually just the starting point of what we would like the aerospace here at Penn State to be. And ideally, we'll have like a space project that students can work on hands-on for like multiple years. So it's like, okay, so you'll come in as like a freshman, and maybe we'll have a 4-year-long program, and like you can be a part of this 4-year-long program, and maybe we'll go to Mars, or maybe we'll like make a satellite, I don't know. But something that's kind of, you know, expanding on top of this.
That $20 million, if nothing else, that'll get on the front page of all the newspapers, and people will see that and they'll realize, hey, spaceflight is something that's actually possible. It's not just the realm of governments because this university group or this little startup, they did it themselves.
There's so much cool technology that goes into all this fun, cool space stuff. Go for it, technology. Yeah, baby. Elmo loves technology.
Hopefully that inspires more people to start looking into working in the space field or starting their own companies.
We definitely don't want it to stop at just going to the moon, because the moon is, close and there's so much space.